because I need to see what I'm looking at. Good afternoon, everybody. Honorable Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Permanent Secretary, Honorable Commissioners, and colleagues. I stand on existing protocol. My name is Fouad Malkawi. They asked me to introduce myself, and I'm a Senior Urban Development Specialist at the World Bank, and I lead a program that we are doing with our colleagues in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development that is called Urban Livability and Mobility. I'm not gonna talk about the details of the program because we are here focusing on another issue. We are focusing on land. But I wanna give you a perspective on how land is very critical and important to Nigeria from the urban dimension. We know that land is important from different dimensions, but today I'm gonna lead you to its significance to unlock the development potential of cities in particular. Nigeria is urbanizing. Everybody knows that. There are now about 54% of the population live in cities. And they are expected to reach 70% of the population. As you can see by this map, how urban population grew fast, and it's urbanizing at a kind of fast rate when we talk about 4%. Now, I have to say that when we say Nigeria is urbanization, there is a challenge here. The fact that cities are not properly defined, that wraps many small settlements under the notion of being urban. And I think that's one of the major debates now in the country on how to define urban in particular. But the key thing, the country is transforming into where people are concentrated in smaller number of towns and cities. So just to give you an idea, if you look at this map, when we say Nigeria has 217 or 230 million, there are two numbers that I keep looking at, you imagine that this is still a big country, so people are distributed fairly. But when you look at the whole notion of urbanization, you see this is actually a representation of the density. So the population are concentrated in particular area in numbers. And there are 4 clusters in particular, which are the Kano-Kaduna cluster, the Abuja cluster, the Lagos-Ibadan cluster, and the Port Harcourt and the neighboring city clusters that holds almost 42 million people. That's 35% of the basically the urban population, and 20% of the total population, and yet it contributes significantly, these 4 clusters, to the GDP. Now, that means that these clusters basically have the future of the economy of Nigeria when we say that they are actually contributing significantly to the GDP. However, when we look at the details of these cities and within these clusters, we notice that they are characterized by uncontrolled expansion of the built-up area. And that is really a big challenge that cities face, in the sense that with the sprawl comes really many urban challenges. Cities are growing, adding really built-up area in a really not planned manner. And that is very critical, because what it happens, this affects the livability of the city, affects its economic, basically, development. So if you look at this graph, this depicts the quality of life in cities around the world and place every city on a index basically to see where it stands in in a comparative way to other cities. On the y-axis, you have actually the index that measure the quality of life, while you have the density on the x-axis. If you look at Lagos and Abuja, and we're not really looking at various cities in Nigeria, the index probably has the major cities. So if you look at Lagos and Abuja, Lagos in particular, really one of the densest city in the world, and yet it is one of the the cities that register very low on the quality of living. Now, when we talk about quality of living or livability, we are really talking about a complex mishmash of many factors, including access to services, access to jobs, access to health, access to education, waste management, all the services that you can think of. So the combination, which is the quality of life, show actually how these cities are suffering from. So they are adding density without livability. So that map that I showed earlier, where you have the 3D of every basically major concentration of population in Nigeria, this is really dense. However, quality of life is not up to the standards that you would look for. Now, with that actually is what made quality of life being compromised as such, is the fact that the services are not being met properly. I can tell you, there is, I mean, I think I wouldn't have to tell the minister, the honorable minister, that they have 20 million units in terms of housing deficit, basically, and that is really a huge number of people without proper housing. When you say, if you take 5 or 6% the household, the average household members, 49% live in, I think that's not, there is a debate about whether it's informal settlements or slums, but actually informal settlements can reach probably more than that, much larger than 49%. When we look at cities, if you look at major cities like Lagos, for example, when you look at cities and see that hardly 30% of the waste is collected and not properly disposed, that by itself has many key problems that you can imagine. One of them, of course, the health issues and the livability issues, but another major problem, and I've seen this in my degree after the recent flood, is that this clogs the drainage system which exacerbates the impact of the flood on these cities. And I'm not gonna take you through that, but I wanted to say that these can be solved, and the state governments and the federal governments have already put a lot of plans to really meet these challenges. However, there is a challenge in implementing these plans or even realizing the objectives that these plans are gonna be, are targeting. And that challenge can be described in really 3 main elements. The first one is the weak urban management and financing. And probably everyone who lives in one of the cities knows what we are talking about. As a start, there is no city-level type of governance that can actually provide the services together and coordinate it, and at the same time, the finance is kind of weak when it comes to that. The second thing is that the urban planning system is ineffective. And I know that Lagos and a couple of other cities are trying to update their plans, and they already have updated plans, but most cities don't have plans. I've been to many of them, and when they talk about modernizing their plan, the plan was prepared in 1976 or 1973. I don't know who's in the room where we were at this discussion. So they don't even really have a plans or an efficient planning system. And finally, which is the main thing that we are talking about, is the fragmented, inefficient land administration. We don't need to really elaborate on that because all day that was the discussion. But this is really a challenge, not only in terms of the fact that we have only 10% of the land registered or titled, but also it goes back to the services and the economy of the cities that I mentioned earlier. Because unlocking the potential of these large number of these land is in cities, and unlocking their potential would be really bring benefits to the cities. Cities are not capitalizing, they are not benefiting from the land value. That's why actually an effective system can help cities to capture the land value and to really get better returns on their investments when they in infrastructure in particular. So I'm gonna stop here and ask my colleague Camille to come and get into the bottom of the land administration part.
Thank you very much, Fouad. I think you really presented well the context and some of the challenges. I think when you come up with a program, as we're discussing today, the rationale for investing in a program is really essential. And even so, many of you already probably understand that. If we could get the PowerPoint, yeah, thank you. I think it's good to remember because let's keep in mind the huge development need of the country. So why would you invest in a national program for registration and documentation versus others? Unfortunately, resources are limited, and of course, you have to be able to justify. I think, as you all know here, land is such an important asset, economically, but also socially. But today, the fact that most of the land is basically held informally means there's a lot of inefficiencies in the market. Of course, people sell informally and there are transactions, but the cost of doing it is very high. But also the reality is you also need to fix your formal systems to ensure that the cost of using your registration system is accessible and people can use it. So today you've got a system that is, of course, imperfect and doesn't provide the tenure security for people. So it doesn't create the condition for banks to use land as collateral, but also for landholders to feel comfortable to invest. They have to typically invest more in protecting their rights. You live in the fear of maybe losing your asset, and they are not in a condition to invest. So, of course, another key aspect of land is also in terms of fiscal sustainability. Land taxation is an essential source of revenues. Most countries, local government, but in general for governments, because it's fair, and it's well designed. People pay the taxes, and and see the value of paying the property taxes because it's reinvested, usually around like local services and so on. So it's a very, very important source of revenues for governments at a time where, of course, it's needed. But it's also important. It's also to control the development of the city, okay? One aspect is, of course, when you know who owns what and you've got a clear planning of a city, you can give rights, clarify, because when you own land, you also own rights. And these are defined by when you do a master plan and so on. So you need to have this information to be able to have a better control of the development of your cities, maybe allow for higher densities in some area. So there is, I've been living in Washington, D.C. for 10 years now. There's a lot of elements important. When you want to do a project, if developers are able to secure several parcels, to group them, they will get special development rights. There's a lot of mechanisms you can use to capture the value of land, but you need to have the foundation of the system and to know who owns what and have these guarantees. And of course, there's an aspect that's important is also the assets of governments, federal, state, and local governments. I think we heard this morning about an initiative of a commission looking into that, a committee, and it's really, really an important source of revenue and also a decision-making process. Government, they can make a decision when they know what real assets they own. They can really make a real decision and a transformative choices for cities. But the reality is today, too often, we see that there is no real knowledge about what the federal or state government own. So it's really, really important to work on that to support the development of your cities. So here is just to give a bit of perspective. So what you're seeing here is studies we've done, it's now 5 years ago. It's the World Bank. Since we're here, we supporters, since the bank was created pretty much, and it became one of the mandate of the bank to reduce poverty, land has been essential. So since the 60s, the bank has been working with clients in the land sector. That's, we all recognize that. But this has evolved a lot over time. I will not go into specific of these graphs, but what you can see is it started, of course, in the 60s with a lot of investment in programs that were doing land and agriculture, okay? Because that, of course, population was at that time primarily in rural areas. We've seen in the 80s, maybe some of you are familiar with this program, a surge of programs financed by the bank. They were related to urban development, and they would do sites and services, okay? So we were helping government find lands and develop the land for affordable housing or social housing. But this never really met the needs. The housing needs are so important that all these programs end up being a drop, in an ocean. So we kind of moved away from that and tried to work more on investments that have a more like systemic impact. And this is where you can see, starting from the 80s and 90s, more investment in purely land projects, where we work with the land agencies, and we help address all the aspects we mentioned, making sure you've got good services, people can access the services for registration, government has the technology to manage the information, the legislation is in place, and so on. And often it comes also with large investment in mass documentation of the right of the people. Because even if you have a good system to catch up on and make sure you've got everybody in the system, you usually need to have specific approach where you're going to do some form of mass registration. So I think what's important here is the bank involvement, support in the land sector has been fluctuating. But I think it's still always acknowledged as something essential, okay? And our capacity to support our clients in that always depend on our capacity to propose a program that convinces people because they see the benefits, and of course the political will of the government. So I think briefly, and I don't want to, I think you know more your country than I do. It's just based on the observation we have made so far. Since last year, we've been working with the ministry on that. We looked at the situation in Nigeria, and I have to say that a lot has been happening in Nigeria. So Nigeria is, of course, both, you've got a huge potential. You're such an important country, but of course, you've got some challenges because you're a federation of states, it's a big country, so of course, it's a bit more complicated than in some other contexts. But you have done actually a lot. And we have seen, we mentioned this morning, there is the Presidential Technical Committee on Land Reform that has done a lot of work in terms of, at the federal level, preparing some regulations about sectional titling, about systematic land tenure registration. There are even some proposal to create registries in local government authorities and so on. So there's a lot of thinking and very good ideas we've seen. They're mostly from 2015-17. But we also see a lot of at the state level, there's a lot of the states have also taken initiatives. We've seen how many geographic information system agency. I mean, today we heard there were like River State, Kitsuna. There is, yesterday we were in Kaduna. Kano has done that. Lagos. And we can see a trend here in creating these institutions that really have the mandate to work on that. And it's a very, very good signal for us, because this is how you also address the fragmentation of services. And so it's a very encouraging trend we're seeing for us, and a good signal that Nigeria is actually seems to be ready for a large program. And we see a lot of you create institutions, but for something, and one of the key objectives is really to get everybody in the system, in your land system. And we've seen also very promising initiatives in both building the systems, in terms of geographic information systems, and more like to manage all the processes related to land administration, and also documenting these rights. And I think Kano had some pilot on systematic land tenure registration, but I was also quite impressed when we went to Kaduna, who seems to have been able to document a very large number of parcels in the urban areas. So I think what is really exciting about being in Nigeria is actually in Nigeria you seem to have all the knowledge, and you just have to work together. And of course you can benefit from the experience of other countries, but just in Nigeria, by encouraging these exchanges between states and maybe creating that framework, I think it's the role of the federal government to really create that framework, you have a lot of the solutions already, So I don't know if I'm trying to change slides, but okay. So this is just a little snapshot on a couple of initiatives we have been quite impressed with. Systematic land tenure registrations. So that's the name that was decided back in 2015. Some states actually have changed the name, and I think it's totally fine with that. And this is what I was mentioning. When you've got a national program like this one, and when you want to bring from 10% to, hopefully 80%, 90% of the property in your registry and cadastre, you need to have a systematic approach to registration. You cannot wait people to come by themselves, as we say, sporadically. And here, this is a good example where you see, in this case, it's in Kano. It's very important, that aspect of participation. And we discussed, and there is often, at the end of the process, an opportunity for citizens, beneficiaries, to go see what we call at the public display, check the rights. If they disagree, there will be a mechanism for looking at their claims and resolve any conflicts that may arise. So you actually, in Nigeria, you actually have a pretty, let me go back. Yeah, you have already a really well conceptualized approach to systematic land tenure registration. And it's been piloted in several states, and even at scale in Kaduna. So I think it's, I don't want to get into the details, but just to remember, the idea of that type of intervention is you take an area and you say, let's clean up the right of everybody here, okay? Some people already have documentation, maybe there could be some old certificates you need to convert, but most maybe don't have any documentation. And so you take this area and work with the local authorities on documenting everybody's rights, okay? And at the end of the process, you ensure that most people in that area will have their right and the certificate of occupancy. One key aspect for that, and I think this is something as we work with you, we will discuss, our experience is some countries, when they do that systematic approach, so let's say you take an area of Lagos, an area of Kano, or another, any city, let's say, sometimes the governments expect people to pay, okay, as part of the process. Our experience is to be cautious with that, because it's very common that it's difficult to get everybody to pay, and you get a large number of people who don't pay for the CFO. So I think what we usually encourage is to make the cost very low or none, but of course you will get the revenues from the local from the land tax and so on, and the transactions. So I think this is a very important as you design a project to look at the incentive and bottlenecks that you can have in your program to make sure you get everybody participating. One other very promising experience I think we have seen in Nigeria is related to sectional titling. So sectional titling, let's try, I don't know if I'm supposed to point somewhere. Let me see. Okay, so sectional titling is more like the concept when you've got a property that is divided, you've got a common areas, like a market, common areas, the shops, and so on. And usually the rights have remained under one big CFO, and that's not great in terms of management of that specific property, but also in terms of taxation. And that's typically in Kano, an area where we see a huge opportunity for both going to this area to clarify the rights, but also bringing some upgrading to these areas. Here is a quarry market in Kano. It's a very lively area. I think people like to go there and everything, but you can see that you can make the area even much better and increase the potential. And people with their shops, most of their shops are registered already, but they don't have documentation for their actual rights over their shop. And for business, it's a major constraint. When you're a business, you want to be able to access financing, or even if you decide to sell your business, or you want your kids to inherit, this is better definitely to have some documentation. So we see a great potential here of how you can associate intervention in land administration documenting rights, but also that aspect of urban development, of upgrading some areas. And that's great because people see the value of the old intervention. They get their right clarified, maybe they're gonna have to pay for a tax after, but they've seen the benefits. They know why they're gonna be paying for something. So I think, we really believe it's a very promising model that we would like to explore with you moving forward. So this is more just the explanation of sectional titling, where basically you subdivide, an existing CFO into sections, as was mentioning. So you've got the individual title and then a joint title for the common part of the property. One interesting aspect, and this is what I was mentioning, is when you do that, you have to look at all the compliance with the planning, the building and planning regulation, and you can even come maybe with some ideas to make all this building greener, more sustainable, and the program could also support that. So I think it's, as I mentioned, a very, very promising experience. So here, going back to why we are here for today. So we are talking about the National Land Registration and Documentation Program. I think, that's a fairly new program now, and the next step is really to make it, actually design it and move to implementation. And I think one of the key elements you're going to have to do is to define the key pillars of investments. And here we heard this morning I heard 5 pillars, and we didn't even coordinate, but some of the recommendations we have in here actually match pretty well what was said this morning. So you want a national program that's going to address, we think at least 4 core areas. One is the policy and legal improvements. So there is some need at federal and state level. Federal, I think we heard a lot of time the need to work on the Land Use Act, okay? But also, the idea is not to wait to fix the Land Use Act and not to do anything in the meantime. I think you need to work within the current legal framework to implement what you can do. And at the state level, the states we visited and they were quite active, had all adopted their own state regulation on the matter, okay? So there is a need, in the state to get some support with that. And even when you get good regulations, you always need to update them. There's always a need for that. So it's a very important aspect of such a program. The land management information systems, And here we're mentioning systems because I think this is being a federation, so there could be a national system or platform, but then also the states, of course, have their system, and then you also have a system maybe for federal assets and everything. So usually it's several systems, and how the federal government has really a key role to play in having the framework so this system communicates and maybe into like a national database. But so that's a very, very important aspect of a program like this one. You want to leverage all the great improvement in technology. And again here, very good example already in Nigeria. I mean, Lagos is actually leading a quite impressive system development, a very impressive system. Kaduna also has its own system. So you also already have a lot of experience with that, and many states can learn from that. And even when states like Lagos or Kaduna, they have systems they keep evolving. You always have needs. Your system can be good, okay, but maybe now you need to connect it with your address registry, with your ID registry. So interoperability and so on. So it's a constant investment need and critical to manage your information. The third pillar of that program is really the idea you've got your system, you've got the legislation right with the institution right, because the legislation can create institution and so on. You get your system right, you need the data. You need your cadastral data, you need the registry data. And this is where you could see like large investment in scaling up the systematic approach to registration and sectional titling. Of course, this is done, at the level of the states, but and then you make sure that most of your property are in the system. And then the last pillar we were suggesting was more on the management of government assets, okay, federal and state, and you can even go to local government. I think we explained a bit before the importance of that. There's usually no inventory of government assets, but that's really critical. When I'm sure, if you want to develop any area, I mean, the first thing as a government you're going to be thinking is where do we have land available, okay, to support the development, okay, where, and you want to have clean rights so that you can offer that. Like if you want to make it a park, you can make it a park. If you want to make it available for the private sector, then you can, open to a competition, private PPPs and so on. But you do need to have a very good understanding of your real assets, and it's an area we do believe could really be beneficial. So those are sort of 4 possible areas of a program or pillars, but you need to think about implementation. Okay, this is the principles we just discussed. Now, implementing a program like that, you can't possibly do it everywhere in Nigeria at the same time. You're going to have to make some hard decisions about where you start. So one possibility is to concentrate on large cities first, or cities, but large, to demonstrate the economic impact of the operation, because this is usually where you're going to get more return of investment in terms of taxation, of economic development, and so on. So you could think about having that program like really concentrate on showing the benefits and then scaling up nationally. To be honest, a program like that, you're talking about a 10-year program at least, and you create phases, okay? You have first phase, second phase, maybe a phase is 5 years, okay. So very important also, we think, if you remember the presentation I made where you could see the different World Bank engagement, so we help clients with some standalone project, but most projects we do, now land is associated with something, okay? Because the one reason for that is the size of the World Bank project has really increased because we're trying to have more impact. So back when I started working in the World Bank 15 years ago, I mean, we were doing projects in Europe, they were 20 million, okay? And you can do still a lot with 20 million, but they're small projects. Now, so the reality now, as an institution, we want more transformation, we want bigger projects. So I think in this case of Nigeria, you could look at associating the program on land registration with some strategic investments in infrastructure, urban infrastructure. Also because when you do that, you're going to address the property rights situation around key infrastructure and therefore maximize the economic return on that. If you invest a lot into a corridor, then you got the property rights situation clarified, and then you can really make the right decision and collect the revenues and taxes from these areas. Lastly, the last recommendation is to be able to, for such a program, to have some clear targets, okay, and convincing targets. It could be number of CFO, how much are you expect to generate in terms of return through land tax, land-related taxes, and so on. And really, we do want to stress the importance of the economic and fiscal impact. I think it's very important to work on demonstrating that this is a program that is viable, because you're not sure to be able to get a grant for that. And then in this case, you need to think about demonstrating that's a viable investment. But of course, those are things I think we believe can be done, and we would be happy to help you with that. So I think we're reaching the end of the presentation, and I would like to thank you for your attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Of course, we have also one other team member who is not with us today. He didn't make it, but he is connected, and he's our global lead on land, Mika, and he's gonna say a few words actually to close our presentation. Mika, please introduce yourself and come in.
Thank you, Fouad, and very impressive that I can see now about 50 copies of myself in the screen, so that is pleasing. But seriously, I think this is a very important gathering. I apologize not to miss it in person. I will be coming to join you on Friday. I think it's an appropriate and timely effort to develop the National Land Registration and Documentation Program. It will have transformative impact to Nigeria, and I would just encourage everybody involved to really make sure that the program gets implemented and does that transformative one-time in history change that is required from moving from largely informality based existence to something that is backed by formal registration. Sorry. I would like to, as a way of encouragement, I would just like to make a reference to another great country similar to Nigeria in Asia, as diverse as Nigeria, as dynamic as Nigeria, as powerful as Nigeria. That country is Indonesia. And in 2015, the president of Indonesia asked the land ministry to really establish a national program for reducing land informality, improving land registration rate. 2015, 40 million land parcels were registered in the land registry in Indonesia. Today, as we speak, 10 years later, that number is over 100 million. And in the beginning of that program, the government increased from 1 million a year production rate to 7 million, and third year 10 million land parcels. Very few disputes have been recorded. Community verification, participatory approach has proven again very strong way of doing systematic registration, even in the most diverse of conditions. And so the keys of success there was really the political support. So when the president really obliged ministry to perform, all of a sudden the production rate was ability to move by tenfold up. And the keys for that increase was private sector collaboration. So about 30,000 people were enrolled working on this activity, and mainly local small contracts with local companies, and those spreading, those increasing in number, and then lots of local facilitators, village facilitators, to show really where land boundaries were and to settle disputes on the ground. Nigeria, as you have been demonstrating to us, is getting ready to do the same. Africa needs that shining example to come from a big, diverse country like Nigeria. We, as the World Bank, with the almighty of be it small or big, on land profession, supporting you, and we hope to engage in this very important program. And I wish you the very best for this event. I'm sorry I missed it, but I'm rooting for Nigeria to make a difference in securing tenure and reducing land informality. That will also open us avenues to work on the urban land use, the green urban development, to make the cities thrive and create economic growth, social development. Only good things to come. So I'm rooting for you, and I wish you a very good continuation of this workshop. Thank you.
And thank you. Let me end actually our presentation by thanking you all. It was really a pleasure over the past few months to visit many of the states, and the team also joined me on some of these visits. We met many of you, and we really heard about all these issues, and I hope that the coming few months we will be able to provide support as needed. And I thank, of course, our partner in this, the Honorable Commissioner, and I would be more than happy to have a discussion with any of you on any issue that you want to discuss related to our presentation. Thank you.
I have been directed to respectfully invite to the top table the Dean of Environmental Sciences, Federal University of Technology, MENA, and that is our amiable Professor Olurotimi Kemiki. A round of applause for him. He'll be taking us through the systematic land titling and registration, a call for action. I'm also directed to recognize the Executive Director, National Coordinator, Murphy Real Estate Investment Fund, Sani Yakubu. Are you here? Okay. So with the permission of the Minister and the Permanent Secretary, we shall be taking the next presentation, and we're going to do a dual question and answer section on that. So may I again respectfully request Professor Olurotimi Kemiki taking us through the systematic land titling and registration, a call for action. Professor Kemiki, sir. A round of applause for him.
Thank you very much, MC. The Honorable Minister, Architect Ahmed Dangiwa, and let me passionately and honestly, as a professor, we are objective. Since the administration of Architect Ahmed Dangiwa, the Ministry for Housing and Urban Development has witnessed tremendous growth, activities, and action. And that is why, because the President, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, acknowledged the importance of that ministry, and he gave us a thoroughbred professional. And we must appreciate the President for that. Mr. Minister, we thank you, sir. The PAMSEC, supporting our minister, the Minister of State in absentia, other permanent secretaries present, commissioners, PAMSECs present, directors, especially our own hardworking Director of Lands for the Federal Government, ASV Alabi Cornies. That is a very workaholic director. He's never tired. He's a man of wisdom. He possesses a very robust intellectual warehouse. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. The members of Presidential Technical Committee on Land Reform, headed by Professor Fabiyi, staff of the Federal Minister of Housing and Urban Development, World Bank Group, professional bodies, especially SA surveyors and value are present, invited guests, press, ladies and gentlemen. I will be very brief because we are fasting, and also we need to observe our prayers. Systematic land titling and registration in Nigeria, a call to action. My presentation is an aggregate of thoughts that we have had so far today. A call to action, to act. Immediately, I listened to the World Bank Group about 10 years. Yes, but Nigeria, you see, whatever is working in the international community, Nigeria needs a more drastic action. One of the reasons is because we don't normally have continuity of policy. Now that it's fresh and hot, we need to approach it in that dimension, because after 4 years or another 4 years, another government comes in. That is more reason why we must ensure that this systematic land titling and registration will swing into action immediately with a view to ensuring that before 2027, we have gone so far in registering at least about 70% of land in Nigeria. I thought you would appreciate that. Land is very central to economic development and growth of any nation. All our activities are land-based. President Ahmed Bola Tinubu's agenda are also linked to land. Talk about reform, the economy, strengthen the security, boost agriculture, unlock energy and other resources, enhance infrastructure, education and health, diversification of the economy, improve governance for service delivery. All these are land related. Once we get it right within the land sector, then we are helping our own president in ensuring that there is indeed hope for Nigerians. With Nigeria facing the reality of economy and lifestyle, presently we are all adjusting to economic reality, and we're gradually dropping our fake lives. Improving tenure of security of land right, more people can invest in and better manage their resources, unfortunately. Only a small portion of the global land is titled. 70% of the world population lies legally registered title to their land. Nigeria has a land size of about 923,000 square meters, less than 4% of that which is titled. I've upgraded from 3% to 4%. We have been singing 3% for about 8 years now. With the introduction of GIA in some states, it has increased it substantially to about 4%. We should always appreciate increase in that. 65% of civil cases in Nigerian courts are land-related disputes, ranging from ownership claim, boundaries, encroachment, inheritance issue, sales of land by unauthorized persons, land grabbing, among others. You see some of the newspaper, a lot of issues, killings, fighting, husband and wife fighting over land, parents and children taking themselves to court because of land. What are the inherent challenges with the existing land registration procedure in Nigeria? Lack of adequate awareness of the need to register. Some don't even know that they need to register their land. High cost. My old grandma is 82 years old, and she needed to get a C of O. We'll be struggling for almost 15 years. And recently, they asked her to bring 400,000 just for CFO, coordinate, nothing an easting. A old woman for 82 years old has to cough her. Of course, you know that I'll be the one to pay. Because she kept disturbing me. I felt that I have to pay. That is the high cost. Just ordinary survey. And for the CFO now, we are told to bring about $1 million. I told her when I get my salary, I'll be sending it small, small. Long duration and land registration, corruption issues, irregularity in documentation, and other bottlenecks are some of the quagmire that are being faced in land registration. Global intervention in land administration, systematic land titling has emerged as an effective strategy for overcoming large-scale registration, challenging at a lower cost in countries like Cambodia, Ghana, Rwanda, Uganda, Thailand, Indonesia, Kenya, Malawi, Philippines, and the rest in Nigeria. Presidential Technical Committee on Land Reform set up in 2009 under President Yar'Adua to address our land administration problem. In 2015, developed a manual of standard operating procedure on systematic land titling and registration for Nigeria with pilot scheme in some states. What is systematic land titling and registration? It's a process by which right to land in particular area are systematically ascertained and documented in an official register of land title. Well, when you talk about systematic, it's a mass approach with a less detail. It's not cumbersome, skeletal detail, fast approach in ensuring that land is titled. Okay. We are yet to have a standardized land registration in Nigeria. We are trying. I've seen some states saying, apply for CFO, within 5 days, 10 days, we will give you. It's not correct. They have not been able to do that. Some will say 3 months, we will give you CFO. I've not seen it. In fact, there was one of the states that we applied for certificate of occupancy. They promised us 3 months. We have spent almost 7 years. It's not yet out. When we call, they will tell us the governor is out of the country. He has gone with his file to America, to Germany. These are some of the bottlenecks that we need to wake up and face the reality and ensure that we put all these hurdles behind us. With the current economic reality, the need to solve the various related land issues and the income potentials inherent in systematic land titling and registration, this is the right time for state government to embrace SLTR. What are the importance of systematic land titling? It enhances land tenure security, increase access to credit because the borrower want to ensure that the funder want to ensure that you have a good title that they can rely on, promotion of land markets, support for sustainable land management, empowerment of marginalized groups, improve land governance. Okay, we have the land use vis a vis systematic land titling registration. We can skip that because of our time. Current state of land titling and registration in Nigeria. Land registration was introduced in Nigeria by the British colonial administration in the 18th century. We also have the Land Use Act. However, as of today, I said, less than 4% of that land has been registered. This persistently low level of land registration can be attributed to a range of interconnected issues: bureaucracy, high cost, cumbersome documentation requirements, statutory and customary inadequate cadastral, among others. The PTCLR has produced adopting a systematic land titling model for efficient and cost-effective approach. land titling and registration in other climes. We have countries, and let's see what they are doing. In UK, you can register your land between 2 to 3 weeks. In Australia, between 1 to 2 weeks. In Germany, between 3 to 4 weeks. In Canada, it's some few weeks. In Sweden is using blockchain and GIS technology. Within 1 week, you get your title. New Zealand, between 3 to 5 days. Ghana has also introduced some techniques to reduce the number of days. Ethiopia and Rwanda appear to also be ahead of Nigeria from statistics. In Nigerian situation, in Lagos, though Lagos has made some frantic effort, but from statistics and literature, it will take between 6 to 2 years to get your CFO. Abuja, 6 to 2 years. Kano, approximately 1 to 3 years. Rivers, 6 to 2 years. 6 months to 2 years. Oyo, 1 to 2 years. Related effort made so far by the Presidential Technical Committee on Land Reform. It was established in 2009 to help the country address some critical land governance challenges. Main target was to establish a land commission for the country. We have the terms of reference of the Presidential Technical Committee. We skip that. Now, we have the Manual of Standard Operating Procedure for Nigeria, specially developed for Nigeria on step-by-step state can follow in developing systematic land titling. It has the planning stage. Another down one, you have about 14 steps, the public outreach, the project preparation, the field work, and the office work. This is a structure that is expected to be put in place. And when it's put in place, logically follow, technically follow, then you'll be seeing rapid registration of land across state. The Presidential Technical Committee has challenge of funding, otherwise they could have gone more than this in their activities. Incorporating blockchain technology. Blockchain ensures transparency of our data. It's an advanced data mechanism where information is being shared among a business network. The blockchain database are stored in blocks connected with chains, and it is expected that before you alter any detail in that network, all the users connected must consent to it, so that it's not somebody sitting in an office altering, changing data without the consent of the owner or the buyer or the seller. We have the benefit of systematic land titling registration. It enhances effective land management. It facilitates mortgage transaction. It assists in providing data for property valuation. It aids feasibility appraisal. Land-based taxation is enhanced with increased revenue generation. It aids security. For you to plan adequately for security, you must know who is living where at every particular point in time. Blockchain, if introduced also, will eliminate corrupt practices because it becomes immutable, the data, without the consent of the user. It aids urban planning, prediction, and decision. Incorporate hybrid blockchain technology to guarantee transparency, security of land-based data. And above all, land value is enhanced, prosperity to Nigerians. This table is state by state, the land mass of each of the states. In the first column, you have the serial number by rank. If you see your state up, it means that you have the largest land mass, which is from Niger. Then you have the total land mass in square kilometer. Then you have the buildable land mass in square kilometer. Approximately, we take 70% buildable. We leave 30% for public infrastructure and water body. Water body in Nigeria just take less than 2%, but just assume that water body, public infrastructures like road, etc., can take 30%. And let's leave 70% for buildable activities like residential, commercial, among others. Then, in square meter, we converted the square kilometer to meter square, or we call it square meter for easy calculation. We assume that if you have your land titled, and every year as a governor or a commissioner or a director, you are charging 50 naira per square meter as ground rent payable in respect of your land, we have the corresponding projected annual income to state. For Nigeria, we have 2.6 trillion. For Borno, we have 2.4 trillion, on and on like that, at the rate of 50 naira. And people are not paying much. If you have a land of 450 square meter, multiplied by 50, that may give us about 22,500 or thereabout. And that 50 naira is our own projection. You may go less, you may go higher. For places like Highland in Lagos, Lekki Phase 1, Ikoyi, you cannot charge them 50 naira per square meter. So you see the potential inherent, the revenue potential of having our land titled to the government. And this is a wake-up call, a challenge to the governor. Instead of borrowing from banks, this is a very veritable platform to harness and ensure you drive income from the land. And that is why the federal government is ensuring that they coordinate this project, partner with you to ensure that you are successful on this mission. Action plan. What do we do? We are calling you to action. One, we need to leverage on the capacity of the Federal Lands Department to drive and coordinate with support from World Bank the systematic land titling registration. They need to coordinate it because a lot of technicality are involved. So they provide that training, they provide that collaboration, they provide that support across the state. We need to review the current effort on the SLTR. The Federal Land Department, World Bank should continue to provide the needed guidance to develop a national land database. The federal state government should prioritize systematic land titling registration by providing the enabling environment and adequate funding. Extend pilot scheme to the remaining 34 states. The presidential committee have done about 4 states, so we need about 3 states. We need to extend and show the other states how they need to do it. The pilot scheme, sensitize them, train them, so that they can take it over from there. State and local government area should ensure proper street naming and plot numbering. There are some states, they don't have a street. Say, where do you live? At the back of a tree, you move forward. You see a guava, then you stop. That cannot work for systematic land titling. We need to know number 4, Ahmed Dangiwa Avenue. It's correct. So we need to know that street. We upload it, synchronize it with the coordinate. We will pick the coordinate. Then we are forming what you call an organized database. Then we also need to link the land registration with the national identification number. Ensure due diligence in determining the rightful owner of land. Incorporate hybrid block technology. Develop a national systematic land titling and registration on state-by-state basis. In conclusion, systematic land titling and registration presents a transformative opportunity to resolve Nigeria's persistent challenges in land governance. To bridge the registration gap, state government must embrace systematic land titling registration, community-driven, technology-enabled approach to accelerate land titling, reduce cost, and simplify the registration process. With the huge potential, especially the income aspect, inherent in SLTR, this is a wake-up call to all states to swing into action and reap the benefit. The question is, when? The answer is now. Thank you very much for listening.
I think we should continue the clapping. That is the professor. Smart, in-depth, explanatory, to the point. Wow, wow. Congratulations, sir. That is the professorial presentation, dossier of information. Thank you so very much, Professor Olurotimike Miki. Very inciting, explanatory, and in-depth. Now we want to take the question and answer section, and we're going to do it this way. You please identify, indicate by raising up your hand. You write your question down, but you also have to direct your question to either of the presenters, either Dr. Kamel or Professor Olurotimike Miki. We're going to do both together. Are we going to start now, please? If you want to have the mic to speak, just let's meet you, your name, your question, and of course, who takes answers for your questions. Thank you. Can we have it for the commissioner from Plateau State? Thank you. Congratulations. Yep.
Hello. Okay. The Honorable Minister and the presenters, my name is Mr. Peter Nyamgai, the Honorable Commissioner for Lands, Plateau State. The professor said only 34 states have keyed into the SLTR. And I want to ask the ministry and the support group whether if a state is ready to key in, how soon can we be able to do that? And what is the level of the preparation of the ministry to give us that technical support to be able to embark on that program? And secondly, we spoke about the documentation. And I do also know that there are dual documentations. During the Presidential Implementation Committee on the Sale of Government Houses, I happen to benefit from one in my state. And I've been waiting for a federal title that I have not seen up till now. And actually, I can use my letter of offer and evidence of payment to be able to establish my root of title. And if federal government is issuing titles, it means I can see a conflict in this. And thirdly, we have quite a lot of federal government assets, quite a lot of federal government assets in states. For example, in my state, there are lands that were earmarked for projects, and ideally, those projects have not taken up, and I cannot see them taken up because some of the lands have been close to urbanized. So what I'm asking is, can we leverage on the big brother approach from the federal government to be able to assess these lands for planned development? Because you discover that some of the lands, of course, have been either encroached or are used as refuse dumps. And I think for us to ensure planned development and documentation, federal government maybe will assist the states. If they so give us, we'll put it into proper use. So that's just my comment and question. Thank you.
The Honorable Commissioner for Plateau State. I sincerely thank you for the question you have answered. And if I'm to make a response, first and foremost, you talked about the issue of property you have under the monetization exercise. I can, from this podium, inform you that we have started issuing title in form of CFO to all of federal government land holdings across the country, more especially the one that were sold by the Presidential Implementation Committee on the alienation of federal government property. The secretary was here earlier who could have lent answer to what you have just asked, but I can inform you, bring your document once we clear with the issue of survey, because bulk of this document we had the issue of survey, and the minister has directed, and the permanent secretary, that all outstanding surveys of property sold by the implementation committee must be produced. And this, the Surveyor General and I, we've been working with our directors. So hopefully, in a couple of weeks, we'll be done with that. And I can as well tell this medium, I use this medium to say, that the recently posted Director of Cadastra has identified about 1,000 surveys to be worked on in the next 1 or 2 weeks so that they can reduce the gap. That we are doing. So if you have any further issues concerning that, you can feel free to speak with me. And beside that, there's a directive from the Honorable Minister, which is in all the news media, that you liaise with your respective states through the controllers of housing and urban development. If you look at some of these, the adverts, you will see my number on it, where you have issues about payment of ground rent, title and everything. You can call me, and many Nigerians have been calling, and we've been giving direction as to how to go about that. If I'm able to answer that, which you have asked. And the issue of connecting to the systematic light titling and registration is a welcome development. We'd like to work with you, coupled with all other states that we have here. We started something with Enugu State in some years past. We're interoperating with them when we started through the GEMS and the DFID. Along the line, some states took it off from there. So we will work with you. We can start with you. You have a lot of land resources in your state. So this is one of the forums which you have put in place to address all of this matter. We are partnering with national state government and also of other state government in trying to build a good system. And I'm quite sure at the end of this exercise, we should be able to smile. And besides that, this particular forum is a sensitization exercise. There will be a validation maybe sometime in August. But let's just work together and move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, members of the high table. I want to thank you. My name is Mark Hiroki. I'm the Managing Director of Citicorp Mortgage Bank. I'm the immediate past president of the Mortgage Bankers Association of Nigeria. I want to thank you for this program. I would believe that this is the only prayer we've been having, is the only answer to our prayers. The mortgage banking sector of Nigeria can only do well when we address this land and title registry problem. So I want to thank you, and we believe that we are doing the right thing, and we'll get it right. I want to only request if this program can be done at state or regional level. Because here we have some commissioners, we have a PAMSEC from the states. It's good they are here, but not many states are here. I want to request that we do these programs maybe at the regional level. If we can do all the states, it's good, where we'll lock up the governors. They must be part of this program, because when people are reporting to them, I don't think they know the weight and the benefit of this program. I listened to the prof, and I think when they listen to those figures, that this is an income we're talking about, this is an economic product we're talking about, they'll be more proactive. So, Honorable Minister, I want to plead that you do this program, decentralize it, and let it go to all the states. My second question is, my main question is, how do we address the sanctity of a title document? Because we've been reading in the news that at federal level, you have revoked over 5,000 CFOs. And we are mortgage bankers. The basis on which we grant loan is these title documents. If you can revoke them at will, at every point in time, how secured, how safe are we? Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. I think I'm on the hot seat now. I was standing. Okay. Basically, you have, in your remarks, said whether it can be done at state and regional level. Yes, it can be done. When we started the process of national documentation some years back, we moved them from one geographical zone to the other. It can be done. The most important thing is, are we even ready for it? All of you are here today representing your respective states. We need the governors to validate this process we are presenting before Nigerians. The minister and the PAMSEC, I can confirm to you, send a lot of mails out to the governors to be here. At the end of the day, you are making a report back to them. How do we go from there? We can bring the program to your dormout. What is the significance, and what is the impact? What is the result you are getting? Like I said earlier, this is a sensitization program of different series. We may go and take it to Kanu, maybe to Enugu, maybe to Port Harcourt. But let's start a process now. What you have asked can be done. Only yesterday I was with His Excellency, the former governor of Sokoto State, and now chairman, Senate chairman on lands and housing. He said, most of these governors may not even come, but they will send you. And the truth of it is that he prophesied and it came to pass. This is a fact. He said he was a Governors Forum chairman. I can imagine the minister trying to bring the Governors Forum on board. We've written to them. Only some weeks back, they gave us an appointment, but we were in Lagos. In the light of this, we want all of us to be on board to drive this process. It's not about federal government issuing title to you or to your state. Bring out the inherent land resources from your place. Give it a title. Get the backing from us. Then we'll move somewhere. Then you talk about how do we address the sanctity of a title document. I'm sure the Federal Register of Title is sitting down there noting something there. We had issues of double allocations and the rest. We had issues of encroachments. We had a lot of cases in court. But the issue is the fact that a document is determined genuine if it go through all the processes to the effect that the minister accented his consent to a CFO and was duly registered by the Register of Title. Then it has cleared the doubt of everybody. And besides that, if you're having issues with a particular property, maybe for sale, maybe you are investigating, take your search to the Register of Title at the federal or state level. Affirm the genuineness of that particular title. Whether it is genuine or not, the registrar will be able to confirm that to you. That's what we are doing. There are procedures and there are processes, and we have been doing that. But yet, as Nigerians, there are quick practices, and these are the things that this process is trying to foreclose, so that we can have a transparent land admission process. And I'm quite sure with your effort, we will get there. Thank you very much. Sir? I didn't get the one of revocation. Let me get it for you. We as a federal government, we don't do that. And where there are issues and contests over a property, we go to the stream. And if the property were not acquired validly and CFOs were issued, we can cause for revocation. It has been spelled out in the Land Use Act, the procedure for revocation of right of occupancy. Thank you. There is a question online directed to Professor Kemiki. Good presentation, Professor Kemiki. The issue is, what extent can the state or local government go to register privately owned lands which do not have registered survey plan? From Dr. Samuel Olubumi Alausa. Is an online.
Thank you, Dr. Olubumi. When we are developing systematic land titling and registration, it goes along with the survey plan. It's embedded in it. You must take cognizance of the fact that you need to know the location of that land, via the coordinate, transport the coordinate on a spatial data, which is being synchronized with the information you have already achieved. So you will also have to get the survey plan, but not the way people are doing survey plan now. You need 14 copies of the survey plan, and you pay 400,000. No, it can't work. All we need to do is to pick the coordinates that we need to synchronize to ensure that we have a special data that can be displayed and analyzed. Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, I have one here. Yeah. Okay. Right? Okay. All right, thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me begin by congratulating the ministry, and in particular the Honorable Minister for Housing and Urban Development for this laudable project. My question first to the World Bank. Given our drive towards digital economy, how do we relate or align land assets to our digital economy? Most of what I've seen here has to do with housing, building, and so on and so forth. But there are other strands that have to do with shared public utilities, like having to have ducts wherever we're going to build our houses for things like fiber to the home or other network utilities. Secondly, to the professor, thank you very much for your presentation. But I'm just wondering, how do you define unbuildable space? It does appear to me that money is very good, but then again, the quality of life is also very important. So how do you create facilities for recreation? How do you tolerate land dedicated for recreation? And how do you discount them from all those trillions that we're seeing? Thank you very much. By the way, my name is Dr. Chidi Diogu. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Following that trend, can we have another question? And let's know you and your question.
Thank you, the Honorable Minister for Housing. My name is Dr. Charles Oswago, Director, Lands and Survey, Professor Mbappe, Minister of Power. I represent my permanent secretary, Mahmoud Amamam. So, with particular reference to Minister of Power, we have encountered a lot of problem in acquiring transmission lines right off way. This translates from state to state. So in the process, we are dealing with a lot of jurisdictions. Now, there are a lot of land ownership disputes, and these are very prevalent, especially in the rural areas, where we have been paying compensation, multiple ownership. So how does the land registration and documentation plan take into consideration the rural areas? This has been happening even in the presence of Land Use Act. So we can bear with me, so that please, to address this particular issue, so that, because this has been delaying a lot of Ministry of Power projects and it's affecting electricity across the country. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Would you want to repeat it and also tell us who you want to answer that question, please? Professor Kemiki, the director. Okay, I also have a question here written down. The question is for Farid Melkawi. He says, how can governments in Nigeria operationalize value capture to generate more funds for infrastructure finance? Did you get that? Yeah. Okay, good. So let's go. After you.
Thank you very much. From the Minister of Power about the right of acquisition for transmission line. Well, there are procedures for acquisition of right of ways. Say, for example, what we're doing with the Ministry of Transportation now about the acquisition of railway rights. There will be enumeration, which will be processed. I'm not sure what you are saying came to us. We're not part of your acquisition, rather we are part of your enumeration. Now that I've thrown this light, I'm thinking that you should get in touch with us. That's one of the reasons why I invited the permanent secretary to join us, because he was our permanent secretary in the past. So let's work with you to see what challenges you are having. We didn't have that from Lagos to Maladi on the right of railway acquisition. So whatever the challenges are, let's know what is missing. Because there's a procedure, environmental and social framework of all of this acquisition, whether they follow the prescribed guideline. If they didn't do, then there's a problem. So I'm thinking that we should work with you. Now that I've brought up this matter, let's meet after now and form the way forward. Then I'd like to quickly say, for our Muslim brothers that will be going for prayers, we don't want to waste much of our time now. We just take one or two questions. The minister will respond to some of them after the World Bank and Prof. Thank you.
Hello. There is a question, how do you treat land for recreation? The good thing is that, as Director for Land said, every land should be documented, regardless of the ownership, whether it's for government. The reason being that beyond you having your land titled and register, it's also a platform for people to verify the authenticity of a land they want to buy. We have seen people buying government land, either ignorantly or they are being coerced. So whether the land is for recreational, is for church, is for mosque, is for school, should also be documented. So that tomorrow, if somebody is introducing a government land to you to buy, then when you check it, like my dad bought an area in Lagos that is for abattoir, and we were rejoicing. And we spent his gratuity to build it, and they said we should leave. Although we have not left too. But, ignorantly, no database, no record. My daddy was happy. So we need to document all the land, including recreational. But the amount chargeable now depends on the government, who in their own wisdom may now give certain exemption or relief to such facility. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to be short. I'm just going to respond to the question on leveraged land assets for digital economy. I think it comes to what was just said by Professor. Once you know what land you have, where it is, this is where you can identify the assets you can use, So I think part of, when we're talking about systematic land tenure registration, is really to get the complete cadastre of the area, and then you know what is the situation, you know what is available, and if it's not available, how you're going to make it available, and what are the consequences, if you need to create certain infrastructures that requires compensating people, you need that information. So on that regard, that's key. And then land, when it becomes sort of cadastre and registry, when they are digital, they are a big part also of the digital economy. The transactions are online. Most advanced economy now, everything is online when it comes to land services. You don't, banks can check, they can check the banks, for the mortgage, they will check online. When you do a transaction, you hardly have any more paper, So I think it's, and then the data on cadastre is critical for so many sectors, forestry, mining, anything, you could name it, it's become part of the national geospatial data infrastructure, So I think it's one of the really fundamental layers. Thank you.
Okay, the land value capture question. I think in the presentation, that is the whole argument we were making in terms of working in cities and improving land administration. That is where the capital is the fact that if land is not registered, then its value is not known. If there is no valuation system, then everything becomes haphazard. But if the valuation system is functioning properly, we know the land value, we have the land is registered properly, then we have actually investments in infrastructure to, let's say, elevate the value. We need then the capturing tools, the tools that will enable us to capture the land value. And that becomes in the form, as you know, of taxes or of enhancement fees or other forms, aside from really the economic benefit, but that actually goes in a much wider way. So we go back then, how we capture that we go back to the basic probably discussion of this conference, by really having a proper land administration system supported by proper tools to capture the land value. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Rounding off now, may I request the Executive Director and National Coordinator of Murphy Real Estate Investments Fund, Sani Yakubu, to make his own contribution.
Thank you very much. Honorable Minister, I would like my contribution to be very short. I actually wanted to answer that question on the land value. I think that if there is anything that needs to be discussed in this hall today, it is not about the technical competence required to digitize land. It is about the business that you build from that information. So, our brother from Plateau State, if you acquire the technical capacity to digitize the land and to issue the CFO and to reduce the quantum of contentiousness, you can't stop at that. If not, you may not go beyond just paying the salaries of those who will run your either geographic information system or your SLTR. So the question I hear in this room is this: if you're a local government, if you're a state, if you're a federal government, do you have a plan around optimizing the value of the various lands within your control? And so the point I just want to make here is that the states and the federal government must put together, in each instance, a business plan around all the lands that are strategically located. So when investors arrive your states, you already know areas in which to locate their types of businesses. You already know where to find the sort of lands that they need. Unless we can build the business on top of the digitization, we will not be able to pay the bills for digitizing or indeed any information we want to provide. Thank you.
The ministers, the permanent secretary, very distinguished members here present, gradually coming to an end because some of our brothers need to go pray. So it's my singular honor once again, with great respect, to now invite the minister himself, Architect Ahmed Musa Dangiwa, FNNI, FCIB, to now round off for us. Thank you. A round of applause for him.
Thank you very much. We thank our speakers who have given us these topics that has been discussed and digress further. And I thank all those who asked questions that raise a lot of awareness to our people or to the gathering here. The one question that interests me, one from the Plateau, which he said that he wants to know how to key into the SLTR. I think all those who need it, you just send an expression of interest so as to give us an update of the people to go into it. The second one is the properties Presidential Committee on Sales of Federal Government Property that has been so about the issue of CFOs. We have now digitized our CFO. We are issuing e-CFOs. Currently, within 2 months, I was able to issue up to 1,000 CFOs. These ones are accumulated over time. And we have to update our survey and cadastral departments because you can't issue CFO without the cadastral departments being fully engaged. So we have done that, and we are currently issuing e-CFO all the time. I'm happy to inform you that my permanent secretary has been doing greatly to forward to me many of the CFOs weekly that we usually issue. And there are many CFOs that have been already issued, but people have not come forward to pick them up. Maybe the director of lands, you need to find a way of informing the public, especially those CFOs that have already been signed, issued, but they are lying and uncollected. The inbound president, I'm happy with your comment also on the mortgage. That mortgage can only do well if the SLTR takes up properly. That's why I'm happy that some of the state commissioners are here with us. Before we organized this program, we wrote letters to all the state governors inviting them to attend to this program. We know that some state governors may be difficult for them to attend, but they can send some of their commissioners, especially the relevant commissioners that concern with land, housing, and urban development, who are to come and represent them. And I'm happy we have a very good representation here, but we need more of such representations. And we hope those who have represented them, they can upscale the outcome of this summit to their state governors. What we did, this one, we can take it, someone said, he also said that we can take it to state and regional level. We intended to meet with the regional state chairman of the Governors Forum, like the North Central Governors Forum chairman is the governor of Nasarawa State, the Northwest is the governor of Katsina State, the Northeastern Governors Forum is the governor of Gombe State. They are all our friends that we intend to engage, and maybe from there they escalated to them, because it has been difficult for us to meet the Nigerian Governors Forum. Though last week they gave me an appointment to come and address the Nigerian Governors Forum last month. But by then we have an engagement I couldn't do. But now they have given us another time in May, which we intend to do. So we intended before that May, we intend to see those regional state governors. If we see them, they can be able to escalate it to their own respective governors within their region, because it's easier to coordinate within that sector. So if they are able to do that, that one will do. Because whatever we're doing, it can't happen. Anything to do with Land Use Act, you can't do any operationalize it without the keying in of the state governors. We know that, and we are working towards that. The next thing is the land acquisitions through the power. This one which you asked, that there's a lot of issues to do with the land acquisitions, especially on the power sector, because the Ministry of Power used to deploy some of their high tensions along villages and the communities, and they have to acquire some of the portion of that land, especially to build that power high tension cables. And the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development were only there to do the assessment, and then we pass it to the Ministry of Power, who are the beneficiaries of the projects, to pay any compensation that they need to do. Just like the Ministry of Housing, Works, if they want to do any road network, they send it to the Ministry of Lands, Ministry of Housing, to do the valuations for them. And whenever we do such valuations, we send it to that ministry, who are the ones to pay any compensation to be paid. So I think on the general note, we have done very well. We have we have achieved a lot, especially on these things. We have to know that anything to do with the Land Use Act, the Presidential Committee on Land Reform has done all the needful in terms of operationalizing the Land Use Act, to the extent that they propose that we have to establish the National Land Commission, to which the ministry is now doing. The National Land Commission, the bill has already been, is already on ground, and all the regulations are on ground for establishment of the National Land Commission. What matters for us is to go to the National Economic Council, which all the state governors attend, or the Nigerian Governors Forum. So we're looking at whichever of them is shorter for us. We intend to go there and address the Nigerian governors under the Nigerian Governors Forum or in the National Economic Council. From there, we take it to the Federal Executive Council, and then from there to the National Assembly before the establishment of the National Land Commission. But in a nutshell, this conference on the National Land Registration and Development Program towards establishment of the systematic land titling and registration is on the way, And we need the collaboration of all the state governors and all the state commissioners of land, who are the key actors to escalate to their state governors to be on board. And I'm happy that some of the states have started expressing their interest, and more will do that. We will still keep, through our Department of Lands in the ministry, we will still keep in touch with some of the states that have not even yet come to this conference, to show their interest, to give them, to send them even the communique at the end of this conference, for them to know the importance of this systematic land titling and registration program. In a nutshell, I want to thank all the participants who have attended, and I want to thank our partners who are the World Bank committee who are here. And even in May, we are going to Washington to further escalate these discussions, whereby when we come back, by then we can meet the Nigerian Economic Council, and then from there, the full establishment of full escalation of the systemic land titling and registration program will commence. I wish to thank everyone here who has been, who find time to attend this conference. I thank you very much, and I wish you journey masses back to your destinations. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Minister. May we please say thank you very much, the Minister, Action Minister. Gradually winding down now, it's my honor to now invite the Action Director, Alabi Collins, ESV, Director, Lands and Housing Development, for the vote of thanks and the closing remarks. A round of applause for him.
Thank you once again, and thank you once again. By my way of vote of thanks / closing remarks, first, I want to thank the Honorable Minister for his support, his zeal. Let me just make one thing known to us quickly here. The Honorable Minister we have is a man to details. No matter the circumstances, he takes his note. And that's why you can see him making his answers to all of the questions that was asked. Sincerely, sir, we thank you for your support as always. Our permanent secretary, dynamic. You told us you're a workaholic, and we have seen it in you. Sincerely, sir, we appreciate you. The Managing Director, Federal Mortgage Bank, we sincerely thank you. The Executive Director, Murphy, we thank you for coming. Our team from the World Bank, we appreciate you. We seek more of your support. We thank you. Our commissioners from respective states, you have done us good. You have done us well. It's a delight to have you all around us. We imagine if we had started this all the year before now, we will have moved beyond where we are. In no particular order, the Surveyor General, we appreciate you. Our team from Lagos, from the governor, we appreciate you. Plateau, NIPS, we didn't forget you, we appreciate you. Too numerous to mention, we thank you. The heads of our ministers and permanent secretary for your support and all of that, we thank you. Not forgetting the chairman, ministerial tax team, Reverend, we thank you. The Presidential Technical Committee, ably led by Professor Fabiyi, and the team that came, we thank you. The National Assembly representative that came with the Senator, we thank all of you. And above all, we thank ourselves for the robust presence, attendance, and contribution. I think we should clap for ourselves in this. All of our invited guests, we thank you. The press, we thank you. And my dynamic officers from the Lands Department, you have done very well. We are just starting. We are moving somewhere. Your support will take us to the next level. On this note, I want to say thank you once again, wishing all of us safe and journey mercy to our respective destination. And God bless you. Thank you.
And I'm also directed to request that we please pick our lunch before we go for our prayers, please. Kindly pick your lunch behind the hall before you go for your prayers. All the best today. Have a good evening. Thank you.